Hello everyone and welcome to another video. I hope you're all doing well today, because I'm sure not, because I wanted to use an intro I made of Harman, but now I can't find it anywhere, and it really ticks me off, because that means that I can't use an intro that I thought was funny, but then again, that may be for the best, because some people get crazy thoughts in their heads, so I guess things turned out for the best, but God almighty in heaven, it ticks me off that I lost all that hard work, you know. Anyways, Harman made another video whining about emulation and how it's illegal when it's really not, within reason, as was decided by 2 US court cases, and so, Harman is going to tell us how Metroid Prime Remastered and Kirby Return to Dreamland Deluxe somehow proves that emulation is irrelevant. So, take it away, Harman!
Emulators are over. They're done, they're irrelevant, they can't succeed, they're not popular, and they're illegal.
Let me stop you right there, Mr. Smith. Emulators are not over. They are still going strong today as they ever were. They are not irrelevant as they enable us to play games that have either been lost to time, or even play games in a language we can understand. For example, over on my gaming channel, Pergasus, I'm playing through several games using emulation, and the best part of it all is that the emulators can run these games far better than the actual consoles can. You also say that they can't succeed and that they're not popular. Considering things like Let's Play and YouTube playthroughs, as well as randomizers are used for things like that, I'd say they're pretty popular, especially when you factor in that Nintendo, Sony, and PC game online retailers are using them to enable us to play our older games on modern hardware. And the next point, that is the poop icing on the crap cake, is that you say that emulators are illegal. No, Harman. No, emulators are not illegal. They are very much legal. What you're referring to is piracy, which absolutely is illegal. Harman, I can rip the ROM out of the games I own and back them up to PC and play them that way. It is 100% legal, as is decided by no less than 2 US court cases, but it may be different for other parts of the world. Also, if emulators are in fact illegal, then why aren't you going after Nintendo, Harman? They use emulators too, but I don't hear you or anyone else challenging Nintendo on that one. Oh, wait a minute, that's right. Harman is a Nintentrone fanboy, so anything Nintendo has to say on emulation, Harman will take as the gospel truth, and since Nintendo has a very dogmatic stance on emulation, that means Harman has to parrot it ad verbatim so that he may get into heaven, which in his case, I'm assuming, is that Super Mario World resort thingy that's open over in Japan.
I think the past couple of weeks have really demonstrated that very well, in that Nintendo Switch Online is taking off, it's becoming an extremely popular service, we're getting all these crazy games on there, games that people told me would never become legally available through the service, games like GoldenEye.
Harman, GoldenEye is just one of many games that were on the Nintendo 64 that many people want to see playable on modern hardware, and since Rare is owned by Microsoft now, that means that the Xbox also has GoldenEye on it. Mate, what about the other games on other Nintendo systems? Like, what about Fire Emblem Path of Radiance? What about Pokemon Battle Revolution? What about The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords on the GameCube? What about those HD remasters of The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess? These are just a few games that if I want to play, then I have to resort to emulation. And to see Nintendo so hostile to game preservation like that is just heartbreaking. And another thing, if emulation and backing up game ROMs are illegal, then it falls on Nintendo's head and at Nintendo's feet to prove that it is illegal, not the ones doing the emulation. Besides, as I said earlier, backing up game ROMs onto your PC and playing them through emulators is legal 100%, as decided by 2 court cases that Sony brought before Bleem and Connectix. I'll put the 2 court cases that prove that it's legal up on screen now. As you can see, Sony tried to sue an emulator creator, and they failed both times. It takes no more than a few minutes to look this stuff up, Harman. Also, Nintendo Switch Online is not taking off as I understand it because it's a really crappy service, mate. $60 a month for games that Nintendo can't even make an emulator good enough to emulate properly. Freaking Nintendo made the games. How did they screw that up? Anyways, get out there and touch grass, Harman. Or at least get online and do some research, mate.
But more than that, perhaps more than anything else, is that Nintendo is doing things that emulators simply cannot do. And that is completely remaster, improve, and add new content to pre-existing games. Games like Metroid Prime Remastered and the upcoming Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe are massive improvements over the original game. It's not simply the original thing up-res at like 1080p to 60 FPS. You know, you're talking about like completely retextured models. We're talking about like upgraded visuals, rebalancing changes. We have, you know, Kirby Return to Dreamland is running on the Star Allies engine. You know, we have new content for that game. There's all these situations with these remakes and re-releases. Games like Link's Awakening Switch that adds in the Zelda Maker mode. All this stuff that simply is not in the older versions of games.
Yeah, if you're not using ROM hacks. Also, Harman, that is what remaster means. You take the original game, you make a few tweaks here and there, and you release it to get some of that corporate greed going. The older games can't do it, yeah, but then some people probably just want to play the original as they originally experienced it as a kid or whatever. Harman, emulator creators aren't doing this to make the games better or to get them for free. They just want to be able to play these games on modern hardware, and as Nintendo has clearly shown, they don't seem to be interested in making money off of these older games. For example, the eShop. That was a literal gold mine for Nintendo, and they didn't release all the games people wanted to play on there, and eventually they shut it down. And considering that some of those games were eShop exclusive, that means that they are now lost to time unless someone had them on their Nintendo 3DS and managed to put them up on the internet somewhere. Anyways, my apologies on this little bit, folks. I got a bit carried away, and I apologize, so please carry on, Harman.
And a lot of these games are stuff that haven't been available for all that long. You know, Return to Dreamland came out in 2011, right? That was a heavily downplayed Wii game, right? That is a really good example of a game that was like heavily downplayed by the gaming community as just being like a lazy, rehashed Wii game, when, like, you know, the gamers didn't realize at the time that like Kirby had not had a 2D platformer on console for over a decade at that point, right? The thing is, Nintendo is actually making these games readily available to the public with new interesting features that far surpass what emulation can do for you.
1. Emulation isn't trying to change the games, Harman. They are enabling us to play the games on modern hardware. How many times must you be told this, Harman? 2. What about those games that I listed earlier, like Fire Emblem Path of Radiance? Is Nintendo making that readily available and playable on modern hardware and giving it new, interesting features? I don't think so.
Right, that is the reality of the situation. The meme that emulators like to push, that pirates like to push, that the games are superior on PC, is simply not true.
Oh, it is very true, Harman. A cursory glance at screenshots and videos showing Breath of the Wild running on a Switch and running on Yuzu side by side shows that the emulator plays the game superior to Nintendo Switch. It takes no more than a mere second to look that up nowadays. So why aren't you doing this? Or is this just to push a narrative?
The myth that emulation is like the go-to easily accessible way to access all of these old Nintendo games is untrue. The fact that these people have to, like, you know, jump through so many hoops to like get all these emulators up and running, to pirate ROMs, to do this or that, when really these games are readily available on Nintendo Switch.
No, they are not, Harman. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. I don't see that being readily available on the Nintendo Switch. Pokemon Battle Revolution. I don't see that being readily available on the Nintendo Switch. The HD remasters of The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. I don't see those being readily available on the Switch. Do you, you brain-dead imbecile? I swear, this man makes me want to look down the barrel of a 12 gauge at times. He's so stupid. His takes are so bad. Oh god, thank god this video is only 5 minutes. This is why I don't do videos of Harman over 10 minutes in length, folks. You now know why. Because of brain-dead takes like this one.
There is simply no real justification for emulation, despite what pirates constantly try to tell you.
Oh, do please elaborate on this point, Mr. Smith, if you don't mind.
They pulled this mod out of their ass to try and justify why, to try and give like some kind of a reason, some kind of excuse to not play the game on Nintendo hardware, when in reality most people were like playing and enjoying the game on Nintendo Switch, right? It was just an attempt at trying to keep the fraud going for a little bit longer, like to try and convince the public that there was any kind of momentum behind the emulation movement, when that clearly isn't the case at all.
Okay, this needs to be said. If Harman is so opposed to emulation, then that means that he would have to be against not just the emulators that are free and readily available, but against Nintendo's emulators as well. Also, if emulation is illegal, that means that most computers and video games, including Nintendo's, would be illegal as well, folks. Seriously, it takes about 2 bloody seconds to research this stuff. It's not that hard. But, as I said earlier, Harman's trying to push a narrative here, so... And his IQ ain't that high either, so... You know how it goes, right?
There is a reason that people want games to come out on NSO. There is a reason people want games to be re-released on Nintendo hardware. There is a reason people want to be able to play these games on Nintendo hardware. Because emulation is simply not a replacement for real official releases.
And most people will agree with you, Harman. I know I do. For once, it's a once-in-a-blue-moon thing, folks, but I will agree with I do side with Harman on a few points. But the problem is that Nintendo doesn't want to re-release most of these games on modern hardware. Who knows why? They're sitting on literal gold mines with them, and emulation gives us a way of playing the games of our childhood. No one's doing it because they necessarily want to pirate. We just want to play older games on modern hardware. That's it. That's all I want to do anyways. And I'm well aware not everyone is like me, and I'm not going to tell anyone what they can and can't do, but I will say that to add into the thing I agree with Harman on, if you're pirating modern Nintendo games, yeah, like, if Nintendo comes after you for that one, I have no sympathy for you with, but the older games, it's like, who the hell cares, right? Anyways, carry on, Harman. After this bit, Harman's saying complete horse crap like, pirates want you to believe that piracy is okay. Literally no one is saying that, Harman. Also, Harman, no one is encouraging piracy unless the company that makes a game is a piece of shit. Nintendo's looking to be heading down that path, it would seem, which is a damn shame, but no one is encouraging piracy of games. After this, I would just be repeating myself, but folks, for as much crap as I gave Harman in this video, I do side with him on some pieces of it. And the last little bit, which admittedly I axed, he has a point. If you absolutely can and you have the money, go out and support the developers. Like, owning an actual copy of the game is far superior to owning a ROM of it. I know not everyone has the money to make that a viable option, but you need to try and support Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, whoever it is that makes these games. If the games are readily available and you have ways to pay the company, then you need to do it that way. But if there's no other way to acquire a game legally, and downloading a ROM is the only way that game is playable to you, or if it's not available in English and a English translation patch makes it, then yeah, I think downloading the ROMs in that case would be okay, just so long as it's the only way. Anyway, with that, we are now through with this video, thank God. I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye for now!